Would you be brave enough to walk through these doors if I told you that the hidden entities inside could become violent? Hi loves, it's Aura. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a brand new video. In this episode of A Haunted History, we will be taking a deeper look at the Moon River Brewing Company in Savannah, Georgia. Like most haunted places around the world, Savannah saw its fair share of war and disease and is said to be one of the most haunted cities in the world, with Moon River said to be one of the most haunted buildings in the world. Before we take a look at the haunted history of the building, let's learn about the city itself, since Savannah has had a very violent history that adds context and backstory. The colony of Georgia was founded in 1732 by England's King George II, and Savannah was originally settled in February of 1733 when General James Oglethorpe and 114 passengers on board the ship Anne arrived at the coast. Oglethorpe named the 13th colony Georgia after King George, and Savannah became its first city and first capital. The plan for Georgia was to offer the poor, working class of England a new start and to offer a buffer zone for South Carolina from the advancing Spanish and Florida in the south. Under the original charter, people were allowed to worship as they liked, and rum, lawyers, and slaves were forbidden, at least for a time. Savannah was allowed to flourish because Oglethorpe negotiated a peace pact with the local Yamacraw native chief, so the settlers didn't have the threat of warfare, which was really rare for many of the colonies. Savannah is said to be America's first planned city, as Oglethorpe laid out the city in a series of grid patterns like the one shown here. There were originally 24 squares to a grid, and 22 still remain today. Savannah has been a battlefield for every war fought on American soil, including the second bloodiest battle of the American Revolution. The city was taken during the war by the British and was held from 1778 until 1782. During one of those battles, 1,100 men were killed in less than an hour, and they are still buried where they fell. At the end of the war, many people flocked to Savannah once it was found that the soil was rich and favorable for growing cotton and rice. At this time, Georgia, which was still considered the free colony, legalized slavery. Savannah's port was an important stop in the slave trade, and many descendants of the enslaved peoples still live in the area today. With the boom that cotton cultivation brought, many lavish homes and churches were built in the city. Once Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin on a plantation right outside of Savannah, the city was able to rival Charleston as a trade port. Many of the world's cotton prices were set at the Savannah Cotton Exchange. Moon River Brewing Company is located in the building that once housed the City Hotel. We will spend a majority of the time talking about the City Hotel, since this is what gave birth to a majority of the hauntings. On January 11, 1820, a fire started in a livery stable, and with the combination of strong winds and the fire reaching the market building, where illegal kegs of gunpowder were stored, the conflagration quickly burned through the city. The fire destroyed almost every major building in the downtown area, and 463 buildings were reduced to ash. That equates to almost 2/3 of the buildings in Savannah at that time, with much of the city's residents becoming homeless overnight. The cause was never fully identified, but it is believed to have been arson. This was only one of 4 great fires that the city experienced. The City Hotel was built from the ashes of buildings destroyed in the Great Fire of 1820. Charleston native Alizar Early and his wife Jane bought the plot and started construction of the Regency-style hotel in 1821, with construction completing in 1826. The building was also home to the first branch of the United States Post Office in Savannah and a branch of the Bank of the United States. It was an upscale establishment and a haven for the rich and famous that wanted to see the beautiful, quiet city. Many prolific people stayed in the hotel over the years, including Winfield Scott, a hero of the War of 1812, the Marquis de Lafayette, the first three Commodores of the U.S. Navy, and naturalist James Audubon, who stayed 6 months at the hotel while he was trying to sell his books of wildlife sketches. While it attracted the affluent, many of the guests resorted to violent altercations throughout the years, since locals tried to preserve their sense of Southern honor. In 1851, Peter Wiltberger bought and renovated the hotel. He put a live lion and lioness on display to try to draw attention to the business. Violence skyrocketed before the start of the Civil War, exasperated by the tensions building between the North and the South. The locals were not very friendly to the guests from the Yankee North. One instance of violence was in 1860, when James Sinclair traveled from New York City to Savannah in search of work. The locals were not happy with a Northerner staying in town while they were on the brink of a civil war. And when Sinclair refused to leave, a lynch mob marched through the streets to the hotel. Once they got there, they dragged him outside, stripped him, and beat him close to death. The increased violence, coupled with the imminent approach of General Sherman, forced the hotel to close. The last guest to stay at the hotel checked out in 1864, just before General William Tecumseh Sherman arrived in Savannah during his famous March to the Sea during the Civil War. By the time General Sherman reached Savannah, the city was a ghost town. It is said that the beauty of the city convinced Sherman to spare most of the buildings of the typical Union destruction. Rumor has it that Sherman presented Savannah to President Lincoln as a Christmas present. The building never opened as a hotel again, but it has gone through several new owners. The top 2 floors were used as a hospital numerous times, mainly for both Civil War soldiers and patients of yellow fever. Yellow fever is a disease caused by a virus that is transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms usually take 3 to 6 days to develop and include fever, chills, headache, backache, and muscle aches. Around 15% of people who get yellow fever will develop serious symptoms that can lead to bleeding, shock, organ failure, and death. It is called yellow fever because sometimes the skin can become jaundiced, which leads to a yellowish color. The yellow fever outbreak in 1876 claimed hundreds of lives, mainly children, in those upper floors. The combined death count for the numerous outbreaks of this illness is alarming and tragic, with 700 Savannians dying in the 1820 outbreak alone. Many of the old buildings in Savannah have tunnels in their basements. People at that time thought the disease only floated in the air, so they constructed tunnels to travel from building to building. The City Hotel is no exception and has a walled-off tunnel in the corner of the basement. During the turn of the 20th century, the building was bought and used as a lumber and coal warehouse, but as the use of coal died off, the building was used as general storage. In the 1960s, it was renovated as an office supply store with its own printing press. After Hurricane David blew the roof off of the building in 1979, the structure remained vacant until 1999, when it was bought and renovated into the current brew pub. It is the first stop of many ghost tours in the city, and shows such as Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, America's Most Haunted Places, Southern Haunts, and a CNN Halloween segment have all been filmed here. It is also featured in many books, magazines, and articles. Okay, now on to the hauntings. Many people who both work and visit Moon River have recorded paranormal activity. There are quite a few apparitions that are said to be seen in the building. People are cautioned to not taunt the ghosts due to their violent activity that can occur. Renovations of the past few decades have been halted due to construction workers having their tools disappearing, their tools moved, and workmen getting pushed off of the ladders. In the 1990s, the foreman's wife was pushed down a flight of stairs after bringing him his lunch. In one paranormal team's time in the building, they hear "remove." after putting up a ladder to taunt the ghosts. When the team asked, "Remove what?" they captured the entity saying, "Step." The team responded with asking what the entity would do if they didn't remove the ladder, and they received a yell as a reply. While the team went downstairs to get another camera, they heard the blood-curdling yell that the entity had threatened them with. The building's top floors remain largely in a state of disrepair even today because it is seen as not safe to try to renovate. It is thought that renovations can disturb entities, with paranormal activity spiking during renovations and it often becoming violent. Eyewitness accounts state that they have seen an apparition in union clothing that can be seen from torso up. These accounts still occur today, 155 years after the end of the Civil War. There is a lady in period clothing, nicknamed Mrs. Johnson, that can be seen wandering around the halls of the second and third floors. She has been known to push people walking on the stairs, and people have also been known to hear a disembodied woman's laugh at the top of the stairs. One ghost hunter team had an experience at one of the staircases going up to the third floor. They tried to antagonize her and get her to push them while they were on the stairs. They heard and caught a recording of a woman's voice saying, "I don't wanna," and "don't do that." Another apparition is thought to be the ghost of James Stark, a violent gambler, Generaltown miscreant, and anti-Semite. A feud broke out between this undesirable character and the city physician, Dr. Philip Minus, in the spring of 1832. By August, tensions escalated at the city hotel. Stark was sitting at the bar and spewing anti-Semitic remarks about the doctor. Dr. Minus saw Stark reach for something that he assumed was a gun, pulled his own gun, and shot Stark, killing him. The doctor that pronounced Stark dead at the scene said that the bullet went through his side, through his scapula, and was found embedded in the kitchen door. Later, at the trial, the jury quickly acquitted Dr. Minus because they were happy to see Stark gone. It is said that Stark's spirit still wanders around the main floor of the building, often pushing and grabbing people. Chillingly, the most documented sightings are child spirits that perished in the makeshift hospital set up during the waves of yellow fever. A little girl in a white dress can be seen wandering around the upper floors, and the pool table in the basement often has the pool balls moved. Up on the fourth floor, where the Grand Hall once was before it was converted into a hospital, paranormal teams have heard water, gender, sister. Most concerningly, this was captured on an EVP device on the fourth floor. It's the daughter. It's the daughter. It's the daughter. A malevolent entity resides in the basement and is known as Toby. It is seen as a short, black, mist-like demonic presence. One instance of an interaction with Toby is when a Catholic woman named Christina visited the building for an event. She was a vehement disbeliever of ghosts, and when she tried to walk under one of the arches of the basement, she was stopped in her tracks and felt hands around her throat, choking her and pushing her back. She was unable to breathe and unable to cross the threshold into the other room. A bartender who works at the brewery has seen Toby appear from inside the wall that Christina was attacked near, crouch down and stare at them. The bartender has said, "I knew that thing wasn't human. That thing is evil." A prominent ghost hunter team member experienced a possession by a presence they think is Toby. Shortly after, a glowing orb was seen flying into his head, and he experienced an extreme headache. When a team member told him to snap out of it because they were right behind him, a voice was caught on EVP saying, "I know." Immediately after they caught the voice on EVP, they noticed a dark shadow dart out of the possessed team member, and that person came to, not remembering the entire interaction. After the episode, he said that the voices in his head were saying, "Kill them, kill them, kill them," and he was filled with anger and intent to harm. This possession happened after another team member asked Toby if quote, "He was the little bitch that likes to hurt women." Granted, he was warned not to provoke the spirits. People have also said that they have seen bottles and other things on tables being thrown by unforeseen forces, usually in the basement and first floor. Jolts of electricity, cold spots, and unexplained footsteps are also commonplace in the building. It isn't that shocking that a building born out of anguish due to the Great Fire of 1820 has had spirits latch onto it over the passing years. Many people believe that the tunnels that are underground throughout Savannah are the Ghosts Expressway and how ghosts are traveling to and from locations. I have been to Savannah numerous times, and it undeniably feels different to any city that I have ever been to. Murray Silver, a fifth-generation Savannian and author that chronicles Hauntings of Savannah, has said, "This is Savannah. It's different here." And I agree with him. So, what do you think? Is Moon River Brewing Company still haunted by spirits that think they are in the Old City Hotel? Let me know down below. As always, thank you for watching this episode of A Haunted History. If you have any ideas for my next haunted build, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more spooky content. It really helps my channel out a lot. Stay safe and stay spooky, friends, and I will see you in the next one.